Today we got a special blend, a rich, unlike any other. We've got two for the price of one today. I've got a very special guest with me. Somebody, if you've been involved with the Human Solution for any length of time, going back at least 5 or 6 years, you'll know who I'm talking about. This is one of the very first guys that we discovered back in, I guess it was probably 2013, 2012. We discovered that there was some guys locked up in prison for life for pot, and kind of blew our minds at the time. Still blows our minds. But we met this guy, George Martorano, and he was in custody, and I can remember the very first time I talked to him. We had exchanged a letter or two, and George is quite the wordsmith. He's a prolific writer and an author, a poet, and he had sent some poems and some short stories and stuff we'd read, and him and I talked. He talked about the healthcare system, and we talked about how he had this great idea for releasing the prisoners that had been in for a long time once they got to a certain age, and just let them go home, because it doesn't make any sense to take care of them in prison, the cost of health care and all that. At the time, I thought, well, it doesn't make sense that there's any 80-year-old guys in prison to begin with, but especially not a non-violent type. Anyways, George has been part of our family, part of our Human Solution family, a member the hard way back when we first started doing the membership the hard way. And a couple years back, George got out. And it's not a fluke. It's not luck. It's not, it wasn't Obama. It wasn't anybody's mercy. It was years and years and years of hard work. Some amazing stories. George has had an adventure on an airplane that he might tell us a little bit about, where he saved some folks' life, prevented a disaster or two. He's created educational programs inside the prison system. He's been teaching. He's been a counselor, and now that he's out, you don't come out of prison for a week, a month, or a year without being changed. But imagine being locked up for 32 years. I met with somebody today. We were talking, I took him around with me making some rounds, and we visited a shop, and this young girl was there, and, I told her, introduced him to George, and she was kind of blown away. And I said, yeah, how old are you? She said she was 24 or something like that. I said, imagine being in prison all your life, what that would do to you. And most people I've ever known, I've known quite a few people that have been locked up, and everybody comes out a little different, a little messed up, whether you like it or not. The human spirit was not put on this earth to be put in a cage. It just wasn't. And every time we get put in a cage, it changes us. I got changed the first time I got put in a cage. It didn't take very long. And hell, the Human Solution probably wouldn't exist if I didn't get put in a cage. So if there's anything good about cages, I guess something like this can come out of it. But it's unusual for this to happen. Usually people get broken. They get broken to a place where they cause harm to themselves and others, and usually end up going back to the cage over and over again and create bad cycles. Anyways, George is here with me today. He's been spending the last few days with us, and he's going to be with us tonight, co-hosting our show. George, why don't you say hi to our audience here real quick?
Hi, everybody. Here's Couple Joe.
Absolutely. All right, so if you guys are listening right now, first of all, let's sort of bring out how this show exists and how you can be on it. Right now, we're on blogtalkradio.com. There's a link that's been bouncing around Facebook. You can click the link and watch from there. You can also pick up your phone, your cell phone, your landline, whatever. Call 646-929-2495. If you're listening, we also have 2 simulcast live streams going on Facebook, and if you see it, please share it. Get it around there. Our audience has been increasing pretty much exponentially the last few weeks. And, the more people that listen to this, the more people participate, the more people get educated, inspired, and the sooner we're going to end prohibition. That's what this is all about. So before we get going and talking about some stories with George has got a lot to say. He's a great wordsmith and a storyteller, and I don't want to get in his way in any way, but I've got a few things I want to get into. We've got today Becca Nichols sitting in the background. She's our treasurer, executive director. She's the one who writes all of our press releases, and she's a big part of what makes the Human Solution work on a day-to-day basis. She keeps us compliant. She keeps our books in order, and we wouldn't be the way we are without her. We got Non-Compliant Mary. And Non-Compliant Mary is an incredible woman. She's about 3'5", and got a smile that goes from here to Nantucket. And this woman has overcome physical hardships, emotional hardships, every kind of hardship you can imagine. And I've never met a person who has a better attitude than Non-Compliant Mary. Non-Compliant Mary went up against the government. She had a case, I don't know, it was about a year ago. She was standing in court, going toe-to-toe, just the way I did, just the way George did, and so many others. And they blinked. She ended up beating these guys. And now she's one of our board members, and she is our screener. And I'm going to go up tomorrow evening on my way up to Oroville. I'm going to go visit her. I'm going to see her property for the first time. She gets to meet my wife in person. We got Glenn Keeling from Ohio. He's one of our newest chapter coordinators. He's got a case. I think he's got an update today. Hopefully he's got an update that says his gag order's been lifted and he can say anything he wants. Maybe they've dropped the case. I'm looking forward to hearing the update. And of course, we got Kathy Z on the line right now. Kathy Z is instrumental in our organization. She, not once, but twice made it so that I could fight my case from this side of the wall rather than being locked up. And she's no small reason that I was able to keep fighting until I won. She's also a board member, and she's been one of the Human Solutions' biggest supporters for, I don't know, it's been about 6-7 years now. If you are listening to the show and you have a question for George, myself, something you want to share, an update, whatever it is, just call again, 646-929-2495. Now, George and I have been hanging out the last couple of days, and, George has been part of the Human Solution for a lot of years, but as so many people that get touched from the inside, from custody, they don't really understand what the Human Solution is necessarily all about. They know that they get letters from people that are part of the Human Solution. They know that maybe somebody put some money on his books or sent him something. He knows that maybe somebody even paid him a visit in person. That's certainly part of what we do. But a lot of people, especially people that only see us from one side, they see us as a prison outreach organization, don't necessarily know what we're about. And then comes the ribbon. So if any of you are watching on the live stream, you're going to see this ribbon here. I wear mine right over my heart. It's a really important thing. I want to tell you guys a little story about the ribbon. I probably told it before, but I'll tell it again. About, I think it was 2010, it was before my trial. Before we were even the Human Solution, a bunch of us had gotten together and we put together a fundraiser for a guy named Ronnie Knowles. He had a federal case going on, and I had my state case, my first state case going on. We were trying to raise some money for legal fees. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know each other. We just put the word out and says, who will help? And a bunch of people came forward. This is before everybody was doing the GoFundMe thing and before PayPal and all of this other stuff. If you wanted to earn money, if you wanted to raise money, you had to do it the old-fashioned way. You had to have a bake sale or a bingo game or put on a little event. So we put this event on, and we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be neat if we could have something that everybody could wear that just united us. And so one of the people showed up with a bolt of green fabric, and they cut it in little ribbons, and everybody wore this little green armband, and it was just kind of cool. Everybody, the volunteers wore it, the people, it was a symbol of solidarity. Well, shortly after that, we raised a little money, but we learned pretty quick we weren't very good fundraisers. We raised like $1,200, and we probably put in 400 hours of work. So you do the math, and we didn't make minimum wage doing this. But it was a great event, and people had a great time, and people came together. And afterward, when we figured out what we were going to do with the money, ultimately we filed the documents that turned into the Human Solution. But we thought about this, and we knew that we were going to be doing support in the courtrooms. And we said, what should we do about this armband? We can't walk into a court with an armband. They're going to find that a little militant. They're going to probably, take umbrage at that. And we decided at the time, there was the wars going on in the Middle East, and everybody was wearing the ribbons. There was a ribbon for everything, that tie a yellow ribbon and all that stuff. So we said, let's create a ribbon, because people are embracing that symbol right now. And we ultimately came up with this green ribbon with the red cross. Well, let's talk about the green ribbon and the red cross. The green, that's pretty self-explanatory. We're all about the green. But the red cross, one person thought about putting a rose, one person thought about putting a peace sign or a victory sign. But if you think about the Human Solution, the volunteer organization, what do? Somebody gets busted. They don't know who to call. They call us. We come running into their fire. We're like a first responder. We're a paramedic. We come running over to you. We say, how you doing? We check your vitals. We ask you about your case. We see how you're doing. We check your family situation. Do you have any support around you? Or do you need bail? You need a lawyer? What is it that you need? We identify, we assess, we support you. We're like a first responder. When you see a Red Cross coming towards you, usually you feel good. It's a sign of help. Help is on its way. And that's what we are. We're help. So that's certainly one of the reasons that this all came about. So what is the ribbon for? The ribbon's got a couple of different factors. Number one, probably first and most important, we wear it in court. Okay, so when you go to court, hopefully you'll never have to go to court, but if you do have to go to court, you'll find that it's a very one-sided, lonely place. There's a thing called a bar. There's literally a bar, and it's a wooden rail that the court's on one side and everybody else is on the other side. And if you're not a lawyer, an officer of the court, or a defendant, you don't get to go on that side of the bar. Or if you're a witness that gets called up, everybody else has to stay on this side of the bar. Typically on this side of the bar are all the defendants, a few lawyers, sometimes law enforcement, and every once in a while a handful of supporters. So when we show up and we teach people to gather support, we teach people to show support. We show up, we're dressed up in our Sunday best, we're alert, we don't have our cell phones on, we're respectful, we oftentimes bring a notepad and a pen and paper, we're taking notes, we're watching, we're attentive, and we have our green ribbon on. Oftentimes the defendant will wear a green ribbon. I actually made my lawyer wear one. Since you're going to represent me. So there was no question that these ribbons are here with that defendant. And when the people around determine or discover that this is a nonviolent case with no victim and no victim's family, and it's about a plant, oftentimes it makes sense why all these people are standing here to support. So that's the first thing, and probably maybe one of the most important reasons why we wear this ribbon. The second reason I wear this ribbon is when I'm out and walking around and somebody sees me wearing this ribbon and they know what this ribbon's about, they come find me. Hey, you're one of those guys. Hey, I got a question. I got a case. I know a friend who has a case, or how do I get involved? So that's the second reason. It's kind of a flag. You wave a flag. Why? Because you want people to know who you are. You're driving a ship across the ocean, you wear a flag so people know who you are, your friend or a foe. The third reason that we have this is it stands out, and people will ask if they don't know, what is this for? When when somebody says, what's the ribbon about? And hell, I've had TSA agents ask me, what's the ribbon about? And I tell them, I says, we're a civil rights organization, and we support human and civil rights, and we support victims of the drug war. We support people that have been locked up over a plant, nonviolent offenses, and we stand up and offer support to these folks. And people very seldom, I don't know, in all the years I've been wearing this ribbon, I really can't think of any significant time when somebody had a negative response to it. Sometimes they wrinkle their nose and walk away, but almost always somebody will say, oh, interesting, or they'll want to know more. But virtually never have I had a situation where somebody says, oh, well, that's terrible. So that's it. That's what the ribbon's about. That's what the Human Solution's about. The Human Solution International is a 501c3 federally recognized nonprofit, which puts us in the status of all the major nonprofits out there. We're an international organization. We're recognized by the federal government. We can offer a tax write-off for any donation. Somebody can donate a bus, and we can give them a tax write-off for the full value of that bus. Somebody can donate money. Somebody can donate a computer. They can donate anything, and we can give you a tax write-off for that donation. And only legitimate 501c3s can do that. We can also satisfy court-ordered community service hours. And this is something that I've always thought was a secret weapon. Not enough people have done it, but some have. If you have a pot case, and for whatever reason, or any case for that matter, but if you get sentenced, whether it's from a plea deal or a conviction, and part of your sentence includes a community service hours, and many times they do, the court typically will have a list of approved charities and organizations, but that doesn't mean that we can't get added to it. And if you submit us as a organization to satisfy your hours, so far only one court has rejected us, and many have accepted it. So I've signed off personally over 500 hours from 4 different states: Arizona, Nevada, California, Washington, and Texas. I've satisfied hours in different courts, state, not federal, but I don't think federal gives you community service, but state courts all over the place. We can also accept an internship. There's all kinds of things that if somebody wanted to participate, they could. We're an all-volunteer organization, just so everybody knows. There's not a single person that's ever worked or volunteered or been part of the Human Solution that ever received a dime as a salary or stipend or anything. We don't get paid for what we do. The secret weapon here, folks, if you've ever volunteered your time, you get paid back 100 times in blessings just from doing it. Make the world a better place. See what happens. You'll see. You'll come back and you go, holy cow, this is amazing. I'm part of changing history. Think if you were back in the times when they were defeating prohibition, alcohol prohibition, or the suffragette movement, or the civil rights, when we were making some of the main strides out there. The people that were part of that are heroes. Well, we're doing it here right now. George Martorano is a hero from some of the things he's done. Every single person, in my opinion, that steps up, reaches outside themselves. This doesn't necessarily, we don't do this to benefit ourselves. We do this to make the world better. We do this for our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids. And when we're done, it's a legacy. We will leave a world where people no longer get locked up for pot or any other plant, for God's sake. So that's what's going on here, folks. We welcome everybody to the show. We welcome everybody to the organization. And let's get this thing started. George, you've been out now for
a little over 2 years.
Why don't you share with us, I know you probably told this story 1,000 times, but after being incarcerated for 32 years, what was it like to go outside the wall for the first time?
Well, it was a sunny, hot day, October in Florida, and well, that was on a Monday. Actually, I knew I was going to be released 7:30 Friday evening on the 2nd, and it was like wave after wave of not big shocks, but minor shocks, and what to do. How am I going to spend the next 2 days, and then it hit me how I was going to spend the next 2 days. Two old timers in their 80s for procrastinating, getting me their paperwork so I can help them with their it's called 2-point reduction motion, which came into law a few years back, where you actually you can get off a life sentence down to 30, and you had to meet the legal criteria. So what I did Saturday and Sunday was actually get these motions ready, the first drafts typed up, mailed out, because I didn't want to leave these two old timers without anything, at least pending in court. And then I remember Monday morning, going across the prison compound, and I put these two legal envelopes in the got to put the legal envelopes in the legal mailbox for these two older gentlemen. Sad to say, they both passed away and incarcerated, didn't make it. But my soul told me I had to do this for them and get their motions in, and I did. And when I finally put it in the legal mailbox, it really hit me, because it was 8 a.m, and sooner or later I was going to be called to R&D for release, and I just, I backed up against the wall and basically just, choked up, because I finally had time to think about it, because like I said, the 2 prior days I was busy getting, on the weekends it's tough getting stuff done, stuff typed, copied, and things like that. So I got that done, and then, now was the day, and I had family, my lawyer and family were waiting in the parking lot, and my lawyer said he'd never seen anything like it, because, in prison they have a perimeter roving guards. They have these perimeter vehicles, security vehicles that go round and round and round 24 hours a day, 3 different shifts, and actually the security vehicles with the guards in it were actually pulling up to the parking lot, beeping their horns, all waiting for my release. Imagine that. Even staff was ecstatic about my relief. So then I finally get into a free car after being chained in every hard vehicle and plane and whatnot you could think of, always chained up. I finally get into a vehicle unchained, and as I'm moving along, I start getting these things in my hands. I had one in my left and one in my right. They were called cell phones. They weren't invented. They weren't invented when I went away. And in prison, if you get caught with one as a contraband illegal, you're actually it's considered an escape device, and you can enhance your sentence. In other words, you can get 2 to 5 years tacked onto your sentence. So I'm in the car, and I'm talking to the world with, one in my left hand and right hand. So then it's still been a roller coaster ride for me. You're basically, my personal opinion with my personal life, you're never the same again. You can never be the person that you really were. Of course, you're a gentleman, and you try to touch people's lives and help people's lives. But after 32 plus years, and lose the loss of several loved ones, and not count the 5 years in solitary, so you're never the same again. But I like to touch on.
This is Craig calling in.
Excuse us, folks.
Yep. All right. So George can't talk to Craig, so we're gonna just move forward as though he's not here right now.
This is a friend of ours from prison for marijuana.
Exactly.
A federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Hang up to decline call or to...
Craig Cecil, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hello, Joe. It's a little cold here in Indiana, but I'm doing as well as can be expected. How's that?
I am not going to tell you what it's like here in California, but I'm wearing short pants and a short sleeve shirt, and it's been probably about... Well, I guess that makes me telling you, doesn't it? It's been crazy warm. You wouldn't even think it was winter.
Well, I think it was a high of 14 outside today.
Oh, jeez. Oh my God. No, I think it was a low of probably 70 out here, maybe 65. So,
well, but Paris, California has been in the national news here lately. It's not in a good way, though.
yeah, you know, California's always been a bit of a rebel state. I did an interview last week, right after the show, actually, and a lady called me up from a newspaper in Long Beach where my case was at, and she asked me some questions. She said, you know, California is being sort of defiant against the federal government right now. And she says, I've been asking people, you know, city officials, owners of cannabis businesses and whatnot about, you know, Jeff Sessions and his statements. And she said, nobody seems to be afraid. And I says, well, you know, Californians have been rebelling against the Fed since the you know, the speed limit laws, and, you know, we're establishing these sanctuaries, and you know, 20 years ago we passed a law saying we wanted people to have access to cannabis even though it was federally illegal. And now that we passed a recreational law and we've made it virtually decriminalized, we're not going to stop now. And she was a little shocked that
This call is from a federal prison.
I clarified that position, but she did quote me. She gave me more time in this article than she did the city officials she interviewed, so I thought at least she did a pretty decent job, although she did refer to my dispensary as an illegal one. And I said if I was illegal, they would have found me guilty, and I would have served a sentence. But since they did dismiss my case, one might think it wasn't so illegal, now wouldn't you? But so be it. Anyway, so what are you hearing on that side?
Well, the one thing I wanted to tell you about is that if you remember about a year and a half ago, I told you that the Bureau of Prisons was considering allowing a whole bunch of the officers to carry pepper spray on their belt.
Right. We did a letter writing campaign about that.
Well, unfortunately, last year they did start doing that. And last Thursday, there was a fight between some people in the middle of the cell block. And apparently there were some other people around them because they were from two different groups. There was a few people pushing other people just to make sure, you know, friends of friends didn't jump in the fight. But apparently they saw from the video cameras, and the fight was over, but then a whole bunch of officers come streaming in the door. Well, they streamed in the door, and there was no fight or anything to be seen. So a whole bunch of them just pulled out pepper spray and started indiscriminately spraying people. People that had nothing to do with the fight weren't even in the area of the fight.
Just
so there's a bunch of people with, you know, problems with their asthma now, with all kinds of problems. And really, you've got a whole lot of people angry at the officers now that, you know, they almost want to get revenge that if an officer pulls that stuff out on them, he's going to, you know, physically try to stop the officers. So really, they're going to get officers assaulted that otherwise would not be assaulted. It's a real bad plan, and they're already using it not to defend themselves, but rather just to hurt inmates because they want to hurt inmates.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, and you forecasted that from the beginning when we were talking about it a year ago. That was what your concern was that might happen, and you know, unfortunately, these prison guards oftentimes are not the, I don't know, not the finest upstanding folks. I mean, they're people, everybody's people, but I've just sometimes the wrong kind of person gravitates towards a job like that. When you get a opportunity to hurt somebody that can't hurt you back, unfortunately, some people take advantage of that. Well, what do you think we can do about that? Is it too late to, you know, to protest and you know, call that out, or is it just in place and going to stay that way?
Well, so far we've put in complaints here, and I want to see where they go. But really, I see it escalating into something, you know, much worse. That I mean, really should have been foreseeable. As you said, it was foreseeable to me, and I actually heard the fight start. I walked out, and I was standing at the rail, you know, looking down onto it on the main floor. So I saw everything unfold, and it was horrible just watching. I would say half of the officers walked in, and just because they wanted to hurt people, they ran around spraying them. The other half were just scared, and they just sprayed just the spray, I think.
Well, maybe this is an opportunity for us to put a story together. You know, sometimes just simply telling a story about what's going on inside. People don't know. They're not going to know unless somebody tells them. Maybe it's a good opportunity. I got Becca listening in the background here. Maybe we can crank a story together. If you can send me some details about what happened, it can't hurt. Maybe we'll get it out there.
Okay, I can definitely do that, and I can send it to your email, to your blog. But it was, really unfortunate that officers, came. Some of them only took like 2 steps into the housing unit. They couldn't have seen anything, untoward going wrong, and they actually had to chase people down to spray them.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
I mean, I watch people that, especially, people that had breathing problems or asthma. I mean, that stuff really sets them off.
Yeah, I work with capsaicin powder in some of the products I make, and I have to protect myself when I add small amounts of it to the salves and things that I make. And even if I put goggles on, gloves, and everything, and I wash up, as soon as I take it off, it never fails. My eyes are burning. I get an itch in my throat. I'm sneezing and coughing, and it's potent stuff. And that's not even putting it in the air. That's trying not to put it in the air. So this is all under the new warden, right? I mean, this is under the new guard.
Yes. There is a new warden here, both a complex warden and a individual prison warden. And my thinking is we ended up being locked down from Thursday through Sunday over it. But there really was no concern that, that any of us were in jeopardy if they let us out. It wasn't like a gang war that might,
It was just a personal beef.
Pardon?
It was just a personal beef, a couple of guys.
Yeah. I mean, it was, from what I understand, an argument over a bowl of chips that somebody wouldn't share.
Of course. Well, hey, listen, Craig, I don't know. I know we've talked about this before, but in the past when they had that legislation that was allowing for that 2-point reduction, what happened with you with regards to that?
Actually, my case is still in the Court of Appeals, and it hasn't been answered yet. It was filed in December of 2016, and I'm still awaiting an answer out of the U.S. Court of Appeals in Atlanta, Georgia.
Now,
and,
you had that.
A recap on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, on my clemency bid, as you know, you and others got thousands of letters sent to the White House on my behalf in favor of a grant of clemency for me. And that put me in a fantastic situation. And the last step in a clemency grant is the Office of a Pardon Attorney has to get comments from the case prosecutor as to, whether the person, if they release them, would be dangerous and things of that nature. Well, that would have happened about August of 2016. On August 15th of 2016, the prosecutor and a lawyer I'd never heard of went to court, and they claimed that this lawyer represented me, and I had approved them getting an order from the court dismissing my clemency petition, but that they would reduce my sentence to 30 years. Well, of course, the judge granted it because it sounded logical on his face, and, according to this lawyer who claimed to represent me, I'd agreed to it. Of course, I didn't agree to it. Well, the clemency petition was dismissed, and these two lawyers went back to the court 3 weeks later on September 7th. They told the judge, we just made this horrible mistake. This lawyer, had some sort of confusion. She didn't actually represent Craig Cecil. So we just need you to put his life sentence back on again. And that's about the point that I found out about the whole thing, and I've had it on hold and on appeal ever since. So I'm trying to see what I'm asking the Court of Appeals to do is try to make up for, my lost opportunity for clemency. I mean, I was in a better position than many people, and a bit over 2/3 of the people serving life for drugs in the feds that had been approved by the clemency commission, they're home now. So, I mean, I had good odds of being approved and going home under the clemency project, and that's the kind of relief I'm asking for, and I'm just waiting for the court to decide what they're going to do.
You probably had more public support than anybody else that was petitioning for clemency. I can imagine there wasn't anybody that had more overt support than you had. That was just a downright dirty pool what they were doing. Is there anything that can be done? I mean, is there anything that we could do, or you're just waiting for the appeal court to pick it up or rule on it? Is there something that can be checked on, or is there anything we can do?
I don't think there's really anything to do other than wait for the court. And as you know, I'm kind of anxious about as much exposure as I can get, because I'm hoping to try to keep the court honest. And I think if it's out in the open and people know about it, it helps keep a court a bit more honest. And they won't try to come up with some sort of excuse to protect these lawyers from my allegations of wrongdoing. As you can tell, I have a bit of contempt over our federal courts.
Yeah, well, it's certainly well deserved. I haven't seen a lot of people get a fair shake in the federal court system, that's for sure. Well, I like I said, if there's anything even putting a story out can be helpful, I'm there to help make it happen.
Well, thank you, and like I said, the assistance of so many people through the Human Solution have been so helpful for me, both current and past members, because there's so many people that are leading so many different groups that really came to be involved in the whole marijuana movement and the prisoner advocacy effort, through the Human Solution, even if they're not, but still associated with the Human Solution. So the Human Solution has been a catalyst for so much for me and for so many others. I just ask everybody to keep at it.
Well, I think that, the way that we're doing this now, this show's getting a whole lot more exposure, and I think that I'm already getting people kind of sending me inquiries, what can we do? So I'm going to talk to the team tomorrow. We do a executive meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm going to talk to the team about putting sort of a call to action together. We did it before. I remember we were at the High Times Cup getting letters written on your behalf, and I know we personally, just the headquarters chapter, got 100 letters in a day, and we got them not just written but mailed. I mean, we had the envelopes ready, the addresses ready. All they had to do was put their address on, and we mailed them for them. So I knew that they were sent because I personally sent them. And that's something that we can do. I'm going to be going on a little road trip tomorrow afternoon, and I'm going to be talking to some NorCal members and members of some of the other chapters. So I'll see what I can do to put together another little campaign here. This is ridiculous. Of all the people that are locked up in federal prison, every time I tell people about your story, their jaw drops and they can't believe it. There's your first beep, Craig. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, that's the second beep, but I just want to thank you for everybody's effort to shine a light behind, what happens behind the wall here, behind the fence. Because unfortunately, there's nobody to monitor these people. There's nobody that comes in and audits that, checks that the prisoners are being treated correctly. There's no oversight here at all. Damn
it. We try to time it to where Craig gets the last word, and I try to always give it to where he has the time to say goodbye. And usually he's in the middle of talking and doesn't get a chance. He gets cut off before he gets a chance to say goodbye. And he can't call back. He can't call right back. It's just how it is. George, I know you're not able to talk to Craig, so
Well,
we had to pretend like you weren't here.
Well, I apologize because it's a legality situation. It's, sad part about it, 32 plus years incarcerated, rules every day, which I obeyed. I had to obey because I had to, allow them to make me continue as a mentor and educator, which I did in many, many lights and fields and ways. And that just a quick apology out to Greg. I would love to say hello, but again, it's we break the rules on him on the inside and me on the outside. And like go back in time with the human solution situation. This gentleman sitting next to me, as many I've been languishing. And incidentally, I like to inject this. My stories are interesting, and I guess you can say they're intriguing. But better men than me have died in prison. I want to inject that. Anyway, some years back, if you want to keep fighting, you realize there's limited help around you when you're in a prison setting. So you have to learn out about community connections. You have to learn how to write letters in a proper way, and which I taught that. I taught classes on community connection. How to become bigger and better than yourself, and you do that by getting assistance from the outside world, and that's where Joe and the Human Solutions came in, and they did a tremendous job. And now fast forward today, the relationship's still going, the help's still going. I'm out here in California, north of LA, south of LA, doing a lot of public speaking, a lot of good people, a lot of positive meetings. I'm staying with a wonderful woman. They call her Kathy Z. And then I hiked over here to do this great radio show. So, from reaching out in the cell and getting people to listen and want to help, but it's also, you become friends. A bond. We want that to grow. We want that to grow, and you want that to grow. And that's all you can do, because there's a saying I say, rumors come and go, but still I like to know why they hate us so. When I mean hate us so, I mean, the people in the cannabis industry, the cannabis way of life. I got life, no parole for marijuana, first ever in America, and I was a nonviolent first offender. My guidelines were 48 to 52 months. They wanted to be cruel. They could have took me twice out of them, which would have been a little under 15 years, but no, they wanted to be Dragonian, and they wanted to be monsters. And for some reason, it had nothing to do with my case. They had some other kind of prosecutorial agenda, judicial agenda, political agenda, and it all came down on me like a ton of bricks. And best thing I can do, basically, with my sins in the prisons I was at the worst of the worst, and 5 years in solitary, you try to concentrate on your appeal, you try to concentrate, how to get out. But I was in prison, my concentration was on staying alive. When you're trying to stay alive, you sort of like forget about appealing something in hard copy, which is black and white, which is anything hard copy, black, white, is the power of America, and always was and always will be. But that's another factor they throw at you. Some of the situations you get an awful lot of time, and you're in these prisons and you're trying to exist, and you can't focus on how to get out through the courts. And I had situations of, as the years went by, ladies and gentlemen, I became a great educator and mentor. I used the word great because it was self-induced. I created that myself, and as the years go by, I would have these very bad institutions, penitentiaries. I would have classrooms, lifestyle change classes, how to become better in your prison programming, how to become better if you ever get released. And I would have young men in my class that had life sentences or equivalent to it. And if you were new in my classroom, I used to tell you, well, if you want me to help you with your case, stay after class. And there was always 3 or 4 that stood after the class. New students, my classes went anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. And I would go down the row with these young men, life sentences, 80 or 90 years, which is basically the same thing. And I would say, okay, who has their paperwork? And there'd be 5, 6 of these guys in front of me. They didn't even have paperwork. And what I say about paperwork is your courtroom documents, your courtroom, they call them minutes. And you got to have your courtroom documents, your courtroom minutes, or you can never fight your case. You can never get out. Then you have to have what you call your docket sheet. And the docket sheet shows you all your courtroom appearances and what happened. So I would have these, I'm talking about years and years, every class, I would have these young guys, and they had no way how to start creating the legal arguments and fight how to get out. They didn't even have any paperwork. They didn't even have a docket sheet. So I then would put them with another individual, or individuals would start writing letters to the courts and at least get them their docket sheet and get them their courtroom documents so they can try to get out. Because if you don't have those documents, you don't get out. And what happens is when you got public defenders, ladies and gentlemen, which is by tens of thousands in the state and feds, after you're sentenced, they're gone. Their job is done. They have a line of guys they have to start, same situations, try to defend them. So they don't pay attention to getting your paperwork. So then these guys get designated and shipped out, and they have no paperwork. Now times that by the thousands. And that's what's going on around America. And, a lot of these guys, some of them have burned their bridges, or some of their families are so poor, they can't help them. And that's how, since Bureau of Prisons, I went into the Bureau of Prisons in 1983. I was cuffed and actually thrown away. There was 23,000. When I got out, 32 plus years later, it was almost 250,000. So, and all the states have, all your states have increased. So we created something that I labeled in America called the Fourth World. The Fourth World meaning we created another world with incarceration. And the numbers are growing and still growing. And I believe things are getting more callous. And, guys like me and Joe and other advocates, we understand the situation. We understand that everyone has their own problems. We understand that, the bills coming through the mail slot, and it's hard for you to get involved in advocacy, but you can get involved. Some people's lives are so hard that, they really can't travel, advocate work. They don't even have a stamp to write a letter in advocate work. But you can, ladies and gentlemen, is just speak. If you speak to your neighbor, if you speak to someone at the store, in church, just by speaking and with some intelligent, kind words that, especially these people with cannabis, people languishing, like Greg, languishing in prison for a drug that does not harm. I was riding in the car today, and this happened more than once since I've been home, ladies and gentlemen, more than once. I get riding in the car today, and a nice young man, 41 years old, got his life together, had a little business. Some demon caught him at the wrong time, and he overdosed. So since I'm home, I have given, short time I'm home, I have given two eulogies to young guys. And in my neighborhood in Philadelphia is sort of like Renter's Village, a lot of eateries, a lot of restaurants, a lot of things for a lot of people to do. So you meet young people, they're working in all these places, these eateries, very nice people. And then you walk in one day and this this one particular Frankie. Where's Frankie? Dead. Nicest guy, had a great smile. So that's going on. That's going, this opiate demon, this monster that's killing so many. But cannabis people, marijuana doesn't do that.
Still has never killed anybody.
And
it doesn't even know how.
Amen.
I was languishing in all those years for pot, weed, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, and I actually lost count how many people with violent cases, murderers, stuff like that were walking out, and I have to give a lot of credit for some very good people with the Bureau of Prisons. I have to give them credit because these are people that knew me as a person. They knew my file, and I say when I had about 25 years in, which was the old law. If you was 25 years in, they got you out the door. Old murderers, you got out the door. So a lot of staff after had 25 years in, they did the best they could with the little power they had, because they don't have power as the warden or the judge, but they did an awful lot to help me as far as documenting all the lifestyle change classes that created, like reentry. We all hear the word reentry, ladies and gentlemen. I invented reentry for the Bureau of Prisons. I created reentry at a certain program in a unit, federal institution in Florida. I actually created it, and it went on today. It's still there. I believe it's still there, but with this administration, I don't know how they're looking at reentry. I don't know if they're putting the dollars in the right place, because in order to put an individual back on society, you have to pay attention to his rehabilitation, his way of thinking, he or she's way of thinking as far as a prisoner. So you have to pay attention to that. And that all has to be funded. But it just doesn't end. It's always a work in process. Am I right, Joe?
Oh, you're absolutely right. The thing of it is, one of the reasons we play this song when we get started, the beat goes on. It's a constant drum beat. If we stop beating the drum, people forget. And Craig always says at the end of his conversation, thank you for shining a light in a dark place. And we got that idea a long time ago, that we had a newsletter a long time ago called The Light Bulb. I don't know if you ever got a copy of it. That we did a couple of episodes, but the whole thought was the light bulb. I always thought it was kind of brilliant. Is number one, the light bulb is like that epiphany. You become aware of, oh my God, there's this horrible injustice going on. Bing, maybe I can do something about it. But number two, incarceration is a dark place, no matter what it is. If it's a state prison, if it's a county holding cell, if it's a federal dorm or a pod or a cell or solitary, it's a dark place. They specifically don't have sunlight in these places. They're dark on purpose, and to bring light into a dark place is hope. Hope is the thing that keeps us alive. It keeps our spirit going. George is an amazing person, was able to keep that spirit going inside of him, in my opinion, with just sheer guts and will and vision. But most people, and I say most people, not flippantly, most people don't have that. Most people lose hope. Most people, if they don't have somebody hand it to them or bring it to them or encourage them, most people don't have what it takes to remain hopeful in a dismal, hopeless place. So that was part of this whole thing. And one thing I found when it comes to volunteers and advocacy work, if you're not continually moving, motion begets motion. Objects at rest remain at rest. And when we stop moving, when we stop advocating, when we stop shouting from the rooftops, when we stop doing this show, when we stop writing our letters, when we stop writing articles, when we stop the message, people forget almost instantly. And if we were to stop for 6 months, people would not remember who we were. It's just that way. It's just like So it's really important. I want to bring up a thing, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Every Tuesday and Thursday, the Human Solution has a executive director meeting, and for the longest time it was just the core team that would get on these calls, and if somebody had a case or a project that we needed to address, we would bring others into it. But we decided we have these 3 new chapters, and I'm so excited that we've got a bunch of new people excited on the East Coast. We got 2 East Coast chapters and 1 most furthest West Coast chapter. We got Hawaii, we got New York, and we got Ohio, all lighting up, And so I said, let's invite these guys to the core meeting. And this last Thursday, Pete Gapel, one of the chapter coordinators from the New York chapter, came up with this idea. And we were thinking about Dolores Halbin, with the Nurses Cannabis Association, came up with the idea last week about putting up billboards. And I said, well, I think it's a great idea. Bring it to the table. Let's all sit around the table and talk about it. How do we make a billboard happen? Because that's part of our mission, messaging and education support. And Pete came up with this idea about how come? Hashtag how come? That you got the why or me too for these people who've been sexually assaulted and supporting these travesties that are becoming uncovered in a sort of hidden society of show business and whatnot. But how come? How come people are still getting locked up for pot? How come prohibition still exists? How come my tax dollars are being spent to prosecute a pot case and execute a raid instead of making sure that we got a mental hospital or a substance abuse program or a road or electricity in Puerto Rico? How come we're not doing things right? How come? And that hashtag how come is a campaign that we've just launched last week. You probably see it floating around social network. We're asking on the website, thsintl.org, we have send us your how come. Ask us your question. What is it that you get that maybe not everybody gets? When you start having these questions start coming up to the surface and people start talking about it, like you said, it doesn't take you a nickel to have a conversation with your friend. It doesn't take a nickel to just start talking. I mean, some of us talk a lot. Some of us talk incessantly, but not everybody does. And some of these people that are a little shy, but thinkers, they think about these things, but they never let it out. They never share it with their neighbor. When enough people start talking about this, it incites people to be moved by it. And whether you're moved by anger, frustration, or hope, or just the need to change something, it doesn't matter what moves you, but we need you to be moved. The message is the fuel. We're the engine. We need to be fueled. We need to move this thing forward. We are changing history with this. We need to finish the job, folks. We need to finish it. We need to end prohibition entirely. It's not passing a law here or passing a law there. It's changing the way we think. It's changing the way the jurors think. It's changing the way law enforcement thinks. It's changing the way the prosecutors think, changing the way judges think. We need to change it. This needs to be no longer a crime on any level. And it's going to take enough of us to change the public sentiment. But we have that power. If each one of you that are listening, talk to one person next week, just one. I issue a challenge. Talk to one person that you don't know, that you haven't talked to before, about something that has to do with this topic. I don't care what it is. Open the conversation up. Did you know? How come they're still spending tax dollars and locking people up for nonviolent crimes? How come I can't grow as many plants as I want? Who cares what plants they are? Petunias, radishes, or cannabis? What does it matter? The plants are all the same. They don't know they're different. How come I can't put cannabis in my body the way I want to? As much of it as I want to. Any way I want to. How come I can't do that without it being a crime in certain places? How come? So pay attention. How come is coming to you. And we need you to share your idea. This is a many-faceted, many-colored problem with so many answers, so many solutions, and you can be a part of the solution simply by participating in the conversation. So, George, what do you think about that? That one just came up.
Well, that was good, but now we're going to get down to the show. Incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, some people may know, may not know, I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to start injecting some stories. Now, the reason is the stories is for strength. Feel into the story and get your strength, and from your strength, I need you to go out and do the best you can with the little you have to help human solutions. Joe mentioned a prison that is a dark place. Back in the 80s, certain prison, Lewisburg prison, I don't know if you heard that, it's a very old prison, very gray most of the year. The clouds are gray and dismal. And they have a sub-basement. They have a sub-basement of cells nicknamed the submarine. Actually, they were cells way underground, and they had this thick mash, real thick steel mash, little pinholes, and you were kept in there, and no matter how much light you had, it was always dark. It was dark, and when you were in there, you were in the submarine. So I was in there when I first. There were my years of solitary. I was put in solitary unjustly. My prison record didn't call for it, and I was kept there by one prosecutor. I won't mention his name. Was my prosecutor back then, and he did everything he can to make me tell lies about other people, which never happened. And anyway, I'm in the submarine, and every cell has, by law, they have to have a sprinkler system. Every cell has a sprinkler system, and once in a while, it happens, they have their own mind, their own timing. These sprinkler systems just go off. And what's in these sprinkler systems is not water, is a water with some kind of solution. It's black, we call it black rain. As a matter of fact, I did a story about it, you can look it up, called Black Rain. And so this black rain starts coming out, I mean pouring out. And, when you're in the hole, you don't have much. You got a little bit of stuff, so that's gone in a matter of seconds. And so all you can do, you can't get away from the water. You're not getting away from the water. So, and incidentally, since it was the submarine, nobody rushed down there to turn it off. So we were in this black rain for over 2 hours.
Jeez. Just
pouring out. And I was younger then, and I right away my survival mode kicks in, and I just actually was doing push-ups in this floors getting flooded, doing push-ups in it and jogging in place, and but at the time I was with an older prisoner, and I could see after an hour starting to wear him down. We were black to begin with, but he was getting, like his color was getting gray. A little bit I could see of his flesh. It was starting to wear him down. So then I was starting to worry, is this guy going to make it? So what I did with him is actually I had to put him under the bunk, even though there was water, put him under the bunk so he can just get that water stop beating on him because it was getting to him. So that's just the story. It's called The Submarine, and it was called Black Rain. So imagine that, and the water was cold, and like I said, it had this black solution in it, and that's how we were. Now, when it shut off, was it over? No. They don't come around. They don't come around with anything to clean it up. They don't come around with any mop or any long squeegee, nothing like that. They come with nothing. It's your job to try to clean that cell the best you can. And then that's the older guy. He was pretty wore out, so I did the best I could. It's happened about 8 or 9 at night, so I worked all night trying to get the smell was the chemical smell, and the black rain was something else. I did the best I can to try to clean the cell, and I never forget when finally breakfast comes pretty early, and I'm in solitary before 6, and I think that was the best breakfast I ever had in my life because it wasn't much. A couple eggs looking green and yellow, some hash browns that were really brown, some grits and coffee that they come in a big pot, and it's basically chicory, but it wasn't that cold, it wasn't that hot. But that had to be the greatest breakfast I ever had because by getting something to eat and eating, I felt, well, I'm alive. I made it. I'm alive. So,
Wow.
I mean, and the stories are endless. They're endless in prison. So, like I said, you have to survive. And how do you survive? You have to survive. There's something in all of us. There's something deep down in all of us that can make you survive. You have to find it. That's the problem. You have to find that guiding light, and you have to reach down. You got to reach down, and you got to dig around inside your soul, and you got to pull it out. And once you pull it out, it's a shining light, and then you know that you're going to be reborn. But the trick is, how do you be reborn for decade after decade after decade? And like again, the stories you're going to be hearing from me, don't think I'm some kind of hero, great person, because there's better women and men than me that have died. And incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, the guys are always talking, but there's women that have suffered, like my dear friend Amy Provo from Can-Do. She suffered immensely. She's just one woman.
We got Irma Allred, who just got out.
Right.
She did, I don't know, over 20 years. Same thing, just a
so
pot case.
It's just not a guy thing out there. Women have been plagued with this incarceration, and as a guy, I can frankly and boldly say, come on, most of these women are there because some guy got them involved in something they shouldn't have been in. And a lot of cases like Amy and Chantel McCorkle, these women did more time than the husbands. The husbands bailed out in some ugly way, legality way, and left the poor wife there. So there are stories too that had to be told. Me and Amy are thinking about doing we just was with her recently about doing a play. I learned how to write in prison. I became a prolific writer, and I taught writing. I graduated more creative writing students than anybody in prison on earth. And through that you learn an awful lot about yourself and the hardships you've been in, and then you teach these younger guys to express themselves through words. So prison is a river of stories, and that's what I'm here. You're going to be hearing some stories. I don't know if they're great, but they're interesting.
They're interesting, they're real, and in my opinion, they're riveting. Well, okay, we've got a couple of callers that want to have something to say. And remember, if you're listening to the show and you're moved to ask a question or share a story yourself, all you got to do is pick up your phone and call 646-929-2495. And our screener, Non-Compliant Mary, will get you up in queue, and we will be able to bring you. If you got a question for George Martorano or myself, or just something you want to share, please don't hesitate. All right, we've got Glenn Keeling. He's going to come up first. He's one of our newer chapter coordinators in Ohio, freshly chartered chapter. And Glenn's got a case going on, and I believe we just have an update. Court was just today or yesterday. Glenn, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Joe. Thank you for having me on. Hello, George.
Hey, how you doing, Joe? Glenn, I'm sorry.
Doing good. I'm still under gag orders. I can't really say too much, but they rescheduled yet another pre-trial for we go to court on Valentine's Day. Both Peggy and I are, I guess they're going to start combining our case from here on out. We both go to court on February 14th at 1 o'clock. they did take the ankle monitor off, so I'm
Woohoo!
not monitored anymore. Thank you.
All right. Hey, you know what? We celebrate it when we can. You know, there's layers and levels of freedom, and you know, I was on bail for 6 years, so I know the oppressiveness of that. But I never had an ankle monitor, so and I didn't want one, so I'm glad to see that you got that off.
Right. Well, I mean, it was kind of quite a few people. Well, the one probation officer, just an example, I went in last week for one of my regular tests, and he was shocked that I had paid $12,500 to get out of jail, and I was on an ankle monitor. So he thought that was a little extreme. But of course, when you, I guess, make the prosecutor mad and make them look kind of not like they know what they're doing, they get mad and they'll do what they need or want to do. So
retaliation comes in many forms.
I have the monitor off. I'm able to move about now and do things and take care of stuff. But yeah, again, we go to court February 14th at 1 o'clock, and yeah, I'm still under a gag order.
How is Peggy doing? Is she doing a little bit better? Is she?
Daily, she's getting worse. This is not, the outcome for her is not a very good case. I can say that her attorney did say that he is going to push for treatment instead of incarceration for her.
So, George, just so you know, his wife has MS, and she was treating herself with cannabis successfully. She was living a life that was functional, you know, not in excruciating pain. She was able to participate in life. After they got raided, of course, she's unable to participate. She's unable to medicate herself, and she's degraded. It's attacking her horribly. So that's one of the reasons that we're, you know, specifically jumping in on this case, doing what we can. When you see an innocent person just trying to medicate themselves. I mean, you know, how come Peggy doesn't get to put in her body what she wants? I don't have an answer for that. It's not right.
Strange.
Right. It is extremely unfair that people, after 80 years, you know, people are still being persecuted against and still going to jail over a plant. It's not fair. It's not. It's very civil unjust. Very civil unjust. And to watch her on a day-to-day basis just go down and get worse is for me to watch it. And, you know, seeing and dealing, you know, being Joe, who you are, being a dispensary owner at one time, you know the effects of what this plant can do. Well, all the listeners here do know what it does for somebody, and without having that, it's almost inhumane to watch Peggy go from being able to enjoy life on a day-to-day basis and have the things that she can have to going to having to use a walker to get around, just getting around from going from the couch to the bathroom. It is very heartbreaking to watch this, to witness somebody this sick going through something this bad, you know, over medicating themselves because pharmaceuticals was killing her faster than what she's going through now.
Well, you know, the thing is the more you work with this plant, you can't deny what it does. You can't unlearn what you learn. And, you know, that's one of the reasons I tell people I'm a nurseryman. I've been growing plants, you know, since I was a kid. And I would never see that it would be a good idea to go to war over a plant. But I've been willing to fight for this one plant. I can't think of another plant I would fight for like I fight for this one. I wouldn't fight for a geranium. You want to take away my geranium? I said, go have it. I'm not gonna risk my freedom for it. But this plant does so much good for so many people, And when you watch the cost of this, I just saw another little article about Melissa Ragsdale, who fled her state. She left Kansas to go to Colorado because her son was literally dying from these Dew syndrome seizures, and now the kid's been seizures free. He goes but she had to leave her family and go to another place. It's a travesty, and I think that's why it's so important that people step up and make a commitment to change, to do something. I don't care what it is. Make a commitment to care. Make a commitment, donate your $4.20 a month for a membership, or make a phone call, or write a letter, or wear a ribbon. Just walk around with the ribbon, see what happens. People will ask you anything,
Something that is shocking about this whole thing is, and you think about it, we are gifted in our bodies with an endocannabinoid system, and the only plant on the face of the earth that interacts with that system is marijuana. Now, that is one of the biggest, coolest jokes for us to have this in our systems and being denied to having this plant. It's like if you taking the minute hand off of a clock. The clock's still going to run, but it's not going to run properly. And we discussed this last week, that whether it's medicinal or whether it's recreational, we're putting something in our system that is already there that only acts with the cannabis plant. Now, if we weren't meant to consume this plant, why would we have this system already built into our bodies? It's mind-blowing that, people don't look at it on, I can't say people, because there is a lot of people that do get it and that do understand that. But there's the quote-unquote powers to be, the ones that are enforcing the laws, that don't get this, that we have a system in our body that only acts with this plant. There's no other plant that I can think of that has cannabinoids in it.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And, like I say, I think that what we're doing, though, is working. You've been a regular on the show now. You're participating. I think that had Peggy not reached out to us when you were locked up and we hadn't taken the call, you wouldn't be sitting here right now talking. And the fact that you're talking is reaching. We had over 5,000 people listen to the last show. We're going to probably have 7,000 people listen to this show. Each time that we do this, each time that this message gets out there, one person, 2 people, 10 people, doesn't matter. Some people are getting touched. I have to think that every time we do this, at least one more person comes up and says, you know what, I'm going to raise my hand. How about me? Can I help? Because we just got a new member a couple of days ago, and her name is Martha Logercio, and she's from Florida. And she signed up as a 420 member. I haven't reached out to her yet. I don't know how she heard about us. I don't know where she came from. But I'm going to find out. My guess is that somebody did touched her, and she's signed up, and she's a new 420 member. We have our new our chapter coordinators from Canada. They just renewed their membership. They've been members now for 5 years in a row. Janice and Devin Davis. They run a chapter up in Manitoba, up in the plains in Canada. And these 2 people have gathered together more people and supported cases all over Canada. If you've ever been to Canada, it's a gigantic place with a handful of people. And it's crazy. There's like a 200 square miles for every person in Canada. But these people have gotten out there and they're carrying the torch, they're carrying the flag. And when I went up, other people around. We went to the courthouses, and the light's shining brighter. So I can't help but think that this is happening. Well, Glenn, we're quickly running thin on time, and I do want to give George some time to tell some more stories. And we got Tom Corby with the NorCal report, and got to make some room for a few other callers. So appreciate you being here. Hopefully you'll be on our call tomorrow. unless there's something special else
Absolutely.
you want to add.
No, I will definitely be on call tomorrow. And again, I thank you guys very much for having me on and being there for the support that the Human Solution offers. And George, thank you for your fight that you are going on with this plant.
Well, as soon as I get off of paper, maybe I'll come up and see you and Peggy.
Right on, absolutely. You're more welcome to come here anytime.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, once again, Glenn Keeling from Ohio, and our new Ohio chapter is alive and well, and you know what? We're growing in all directions right now. So George, just getting a little taste of the people. Sometimes we have dozens of callers. Sometimes we have a handful, but there's that constant drumbeat of a message that humanity, we're the human solution. We're not the robot solution. We're not the book solution. We're the human solution. And humanity is a thing that's hard to find in the world, much less behind bars. You had a way to break through and express humanity through your writing and through your teaching. And how important is it that people maintain their humanity and
Well, yeah, when prison's a very old thing. Man has been caging man for centuries, and there's some great history with that. We had the movies and the books about people being falsely incarcerated and suffering. But and then you come to the modern times, the times where we live, and it's still going on. It's still going on, and like I said, I became a prolific writer and director. I directed and skits in prison, and there's one particular play that I'm going to do. And you have to imagine in this day and time where there was a woman in prison. I'm not going to label whether it was state or fed, but this woman was in prison, and she was a petite thing, and I don't know how she fell through the cracks, but she went into the woman's prison pregnant, and something happened, and she fell through the cracks. No one knew, and she kept it to herself. She's had some kind of mental anguish going on. I don't know what. I don't know if it was the family on the street. I just didn't know her. Didn't know the reasons. When someone frightened gets thrown in a cage, being frightened escalates and they don't think rational. Anyway, she kept the pregnancy to herself, this poor soul. And can you imagine that? Night after night, she's laying there on that bunk with the door locked and the cell locked, and she's pregnant. And what happened to this poor thing that she wound up delivering prematurely in the middle of the night, and come morning, the child was dead after delivered, and she was dead. And that's a true story, ladies and gentlemen. So I believe some relative came out of the woodwork, and the Bureau of Prisons quickly settled restitution, financial restitution for the situation. But that's where the story should not die. That's where the story should not die. Stories should be told, and I'm going to be directing that and filming that real soon, probably this year. And I want the world to see. Now, I'm not saying that all I do, my creativity, writings, and films. I'm not saying that we should hate. Can't hate, because once you hate, it clouds your thinking, clouds what you can do as an advocate. Can't hate, and I taught that in prison. When I went away, I was a young guy, and I was put in the worst prison in America, Marion, Illinois. It was the first totally locked down facility ever, federal facility. I mean, you were there, you were locked down. Didn't even have a policy, wasn't legal, because if you know case law like I know, it's called the Robert Strauss Supreme Court decision. Robert Strauss was the Birdman of Alcatraz, and he was actually kept in solitary. Okay, he was sentenced to solitary. He was actually sentenced to solitary, and the Supreme Court overturned that, where you cannot be sentenced to solitary. And my situation, when I was kept in solitary for 5 years, the only reason they got away with it because they moved me. They kept moving me. And more than one warden at different institutions used to come back into the hole and tell me, see, you know, Martorano, I don't have you in this hole. It's that prosecutor, Philadelphia, that's doing this to you. And back then, the way the prosecutor got away with it, if there's anything happened in the streets of Philadelphia, whether it was violent or something big criminal indictment, he would say that I was under investigation. Even though I was in prison, I was in investigation for the incident, whether it was a violent incident or something. And that's how legally they would take me, throw me in the hole. And then actually there is again a Supreme. I don't know the case right off the hand, but in the 90s, I believe it was 92, the Supreme Court came down and said you couldn't do that anymore. And then naturally, I was already out of solitary at that time. I went from 83 to 88, but Supreme Court had, of course, they were continuing to do it, and Supreme Court had said, no, this guy's already sentenced. He's already sentenced. He's already been punished enough. You can't just take him now. If you had infractions where you broke the rules in prison, you know, violent escapes or something like that, then they had justification to put you in solitary. But I did 32 plus years without an incident report. My prison record is stellar. Not only is it stellar in conduct, it is in stellar in educational feats, etc. So, but again, you know, hating. I seen so many prisoners. You know, they just they either get a fetal position on the bunk, they give up, or they become violent and they want to lash out. You know, it's human nature. There's some of us, human natures are different. Like Craig has a great. He's not going to become ugly or mean. He's just trying to come home. It's just a human being trying to come home with the help of human solutions. I'll say that sentence again. Just a human being trying to come home with the help of human solutions. So, like, again, I'm here to tell you the stories, and when Greg tells me, Joe gives me the green light, you're going to hear a story.
No, absolutely. In fact, you know, keep going. We've got a good 30 minutes, and Tom Corby usually is good for about 5-10 minutes at the very end of the show. So we got 20 minutes of we definitely want to hear more.
Well, I haven't been in California, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't been in California in over 40 years, and I've been speaking around the state. Great people out here, and again, you cannot hate. I have to thank. I had permission to come out here. I have to thank the individual. The individuals allowed that to happen. I'm out here speaking. I'm not indulging, and it's just so great. It's just so great. It's just that. But again, it's just that. There's this fear. I feel that there's a fear. There's still a fear with people in the cannabis industry. It's why do we have to? I lived in fear for all those years in prison, and now I'm home. And I'm still living under fear, and I already addressed my attorney to address the courts that it's absolutely inhumane to take an individual away, she or her, and keep them in fear for years and years and years. The underlying stress factor is immense. It can give you poor health. It can make you mentally deranged. Constant fear, constant, should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? So then we're the only country that does that. We're the only country that does that. Even countries that have, I met foreigners in prison over the 30 years, and some of them countries like Russia, etc., they have much more harsher prison conditions, but it doesn't last long. Don't last long. I've seen situations where multi-murders. Most they get is anywhere from 10 to 20 years in these European countries. let's go. You can laugh about it. It's not laughable. What was his name? Mom Pak. He was the leader of the Cambodian Khmer Rouge. He had 2 million people killed. Literally had 2 million people killed. And he got 20 years house arrest. He killed 2 million people, ladies and gentlemen. He got 20 years house arrest. And he wound up dying after a couple of years in his own home with his own servants on the house arrest. Killed 2 million people. They felt that the prison at his age wouldn't serve his purpose.
Yeah, we will.
So, and here we are, putting people away, nonviolent first offender, and throwing away the key. And you know, when you get somebody in their 50s or 60s, and you don't have to throw away a key, you can give them a 10 or 15 year sentence. You know, chances of them coming home are slim. Chances of them coming home. Again, like I said, I lived in the Bureau of Prisons for many, many years, and it was very good staff. And like the medical try to do the best they can, but you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, the bus pulls up twice a week. When I first went to prison, the bus pulled up every 6 weeks. Okay, 32 years later, the bus pulls up twice a week, sometimes more, with all fresh intake guys and all fresh guys with medical problems. So the medical department tries to keep up, and I did my job with the prisoners. Basically, I told them, hey, listen, eat right, exercise, keep moving. I don't care if you're 26 or 76 or 86. Keep moving. And I like to share this with them. I did a survey. I worked closely with psychology departments over the years. Had very good rapport. I even had my own where they would say what I needed. I put orders in through their budget, stuff that I needed, curriculum for classrooms. And I did a survey with the psychology department. Yeah, why wasn't the elderly, and I did this, was all these in the 80s, which was not too many on the compound. Why weren't they forgetting? Why weren't they showing signs of dementia, Alzheimer's? And I did this 1 year study, took notes, and I had certain guys, elderly inmates I did the study with. And what we attested the study to, what the study came out to, ladies and gentlemen, was that they fended for themselves. They was there to look out for them. They had to fend for themselves. They had to get up and go eat. They had to get up and go to laundry. They had to go up and go to medical. They had to go get their common. They had to fend for themselves. Even there, if they lived with the cellie, whether it was an elderly guy, a younger guy, they had to do things themselves. So, and that's what the study was attested to. When you fend for yourself and there's no one's there, they didn't forget. And I used to actually, with some of the older guys, I would walk in their room on a Monday with a paper clip and hide it in front of them. I would hide it in front of them and come back 3-4 days later and I say, where's that paper clip? And they all went right. They thought, they paused a minute, but they went to that paper clip. So, prison is a place where you can do a lot of learning, a lot of experiences, and I do believe that the Bureau of Prisons, I don't know about state system, but I do prisons. They're not happy with the warehousing effect. They're not happy with it because they can't really do what they want to do from human being to human being. Again, because all the arrests, bus pulling up, it's a non-stop situation, and I believe I had what was the right word? A forensic investigator, Angela, one of the best in the country. She did a forensic investigation on the cost factor of my indictment, court cost, incarceration. In 32 plus years, ladies and gentlemen, it came over $8 million.
Jeez.
Imagine that. Now, how many mortgages that we could have paid to save the home? How many medical insurance that we could have
built a road?
How many educational plans?
Yeah.
We could have helped an awful lot of people with over $8 million. and they kept me in cost of over $8 million. Now times that by tens of thousands that are languishing. Tens of thousands of money we're just throwing away.
How come, folks? How come? How come this keeps happening? How come we're still doing it? How come we're still allowing it? How come we're not outraged that this is happening? And that's what, that's a question we all need to ask ourselves. Why are we not moved to act? Or maybe we are. Why are we not acting? George, this is something that blows me away. Of all the people that we've helped over the years, probably 95% of the people come to us. Most of them are state cases because very few people fight a federal case, as you know. Most people just take their deal, they cooperate, they rat on everybody they know, and nobody hears from them anymore. Occasionally we get a case, somebody stands up and fights, and I've sat in federal courtrooms across the country. But most of them are state cases, and many of them are cases in states where there are laws supposed to be protecting you. We have cases today. Most of the time when people come to us, they participate while their case is going on, and then as soon as their case is over, whether they win, lose, or plead out, they disappear. No longer to be heard from. They're not here to help anybody else. We even have people who used to be, part of the organization, and they just, have family problems, whatnot. They're not doing this anymore. What causes you to care enough or to find it important to continue to help this battle? You wouldn't have to do that. You could just go on your own way and, live your life out.
Well, it's the fear factor. People, they don't want to get involved in advocate work. They want to go on. They want to be disappear in life because fear. Again, they're tired of living in fear. They feel if they get involved in something, the fear is going to enter them again. What are they going to do to me? Are they going to raise my taxes, take my house, try to put me back? It's the fear factor. That's the sad part. Me, I'm back doing advocate work. I started something called Cannabis for Guns. It's nothing physical. When I'm traveling the country speaking Cannabis for Guns, where I'm trying to get local law enforcement to work with me, where we take the guns from these gang members and thugs, young people, and you get a voucher. Actually, get a voucher from the authorities. You take the voucher to recreational states, or mostly kind of only can done basically recreational states, or the city government can actually work with the criminal statute, which says it on the website, cannabisforguns.com. The criminal statute, basically in all our 50 states, is you can have an ounce and a half or less on you. So what we're trying to do is, I'm working with retired law enforcement. What we're trying to do is get that established. Now, what I do is create a mental deterrent factor. That's all I'm doing on the freedom of speech. It's like this, ladies and gentlemen. You go home and someone in your family, your neighbor's having a bad day, and you say to he or she, listen, relax, calm down, let's go have a drink. That is a mental deterrent factor. So this is what I'm trying to create in America, mental deterrent factor. And the reason I started this, I get up early. That's what prison does to you, make you get up early. And in my city, Philadelphia, every single morning, people are shot. They call it the Badlands. 2 or 3 shootings, children in crossfires. I woke up one morning about a little over a year ago, and a 2-year-old was playing with her dad in front of the house. Two young guys on bikes. Were not even old enough to drive. Come back, rode by and opened fire. Killed the father, shot a 4-year-old 4 times in her back. This 4-year-old will never be the same again. That's when I said, you know what? Enough's enough. Enough's enough. So here's me, did 32 plus years. I'm out there again trying to help, trying to do things. By just speaking. So all I'm asking everyone out there, listen, speak. Have a format, have a way to help by just speaking. You could speak anywhere. You could speak in the shopping centers. You could speak in a laundromat. You can speak getting gas. You can just walk down the street. Someone smiles at you. You smile at her. Stop and you talk and you speak. Believe me, if everyone out there just speaks, takes the time to speak one individual day about the human solutions, just one a day, believe me, things could happen. Things could grow. I'm not asking anyone to be as far-fetched as me. I mean, I could work with this new intervention thing. I'm not asking you to be another George or actually another Joe, human salute. We're not asking you to take the lead. No. Okay, we're asking you to be yourself, just relax, and talk about injustice.
Now, we got enough time that I'm sure you're probably sick of telling it, but you got a story that just is unbelievable. And it happened up, I don't know, probably about 20,000 feet up in the air. And I heard about your story before I knew you. I read about it somewhere, and I was like,
It's on social media.
son of a bitch, why would somebody do that? Why don't you tell us about what happened up in the airplane?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was 2010. I had just lost again in federal court. Incidentally, I'm the most appealed federal prisoner ever in the world, 32 appeals. And when you travel, you're chained up, and you know ahead of time they pack you out. When you're traveling. So when I know I travel, incidentally, I used to travel cross country chained in a bus, and then all of a sudden prop planes came in, and then now they fly around in these jets. So any given day, and ladies and gentlemen, across America, there's hundreds and hundreds of federal prisoners chained in buses or chained flying in the skies. That's America. Hundreds and hundreds. I think just the federal system, for the federal system to function, because they have to keep, I believe it's up to 15,000 federal inmates in transit at all times. Wow. That is fact. They have to keep them moving. They transfer you X amount of time to another prison. They have it estimated they have to have 15,000 in transit, because if that transit stops, they don't have the beds. They would have to go out and build 10 prisons overnight.
Or just let some go. I mean, But
anyway, back to the story. So when I know I got to travel, I stay up all night, make myself extremely work out. If I have coffee, I'll drink some. Stay up all night. The reason you want to stay up all night is because when you are chained up and finally you go on a train, it's called Con Air. When you're on the Con Air, you want to sleep. You want to sleep because it's not like there's flights that you take. You might have one exchange flight in your travels, or it's direct from point A to point, direct flight. But some prison Con Air flights, you can land and take off 7-8 times that day. 7-8 times, easy. So no, that's actually, when you land, you have to take off. So it's actually landing and taking off more than that. You add it up, it's like 14 times coming down and going up. Anyway, I'm sleeping, and I feel something around my feet. And it was this long foot. And these toes were trying to grab something. The guy shimmied out of his bus shoe. He got these cheap bus shoes. And I looked down, and I thought it was a pen. I wear reading glasses. So I thought it was a pen. It's this guy who wanted a pen. And I looked down real good, and it was called speed handcuff key. A speed handcuff key. They're about 3 inches long. They have a rubber. If they knew that key was near me, and they knew if I was going to hold that key. If you hold that key, you're dead. They knew you held that key. The policy is they have to kill you. So I don't know what to do. Incidentally, the people behind me were Sumerian pirates. I got nothing against Sumerian pirates, but they were Sumerian pirates buried in the federal system. They're never going to see daylight. So they surmise that they're going to come out of these keys and commandeer Con Air in midair. You're not getting into the pilot cabin. You're not getting it in.
Not a lot of thought went into it.
You got these air marshals with laser beam guns. So and he's persistent. He wants to get this key. So I'm to tell him, you will have us all killed. And it's the back of the plane. It's right past where the serving galley was. They don't serve you this. These planes are so old. They're so old. There's basically 12 of us in this little section. So I knew I'm going to get killed. And whoever's near this key is going to get killed. So what do? I had to, for a split second, I figured, let me reach down. If I can reach down and secure it somewhere where these Somalian pirates don't want to get it. So, yeah, it's not easy going down handcuffs. You got to know how to do it. You have to move them up best you can. You have to actually spit on your forearm so you can shimmy the thing up there so you can reach down. Well, anyway, I got the key. I know if they see me with the key, I'm dead. I'm dead in seconds. So what to do? Where do you hide a key on a plane? So I just said, there was a little groove in the floor, and it was like the best toss ever in my life. It was a life or death toss. I said, I have to toss this where it's going to land away from these Somalians. I tossed it there, and it landed perfect in the groove on the floor. And then I got the air marshal's attention. I said, listen, there's your key, get your key. And who got the worst end out of it? It was a panic, because I directed him toward the key. I was taken from the back of the plane to the front of the plane, strapped in a seat with Velcro around me. They have this ball, it's like a fire hose, but the end of it's Velcro, and they tap it on your seat and they Velcro me, and I was Velcroed like that because they had to question me where the key came from. But lo and behold, the key was dropped by one of the contract air marshals.
Wow.
Oh, so now they all joined forces to protect him, because he's gone, and they questioned, and I told them just what I told you, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, when the plane lands, I was the first one off the plane, thrown in with guards, taken to Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere, and thrown in the hole. And I saved the day. About 2 days later, finally, a federal liaison, that county jails in the middle of nowhere have what you call federal liaison. They're attached to the jail, because now and he says, I heard, is it true? And I says, yeah, it's true. He said, well, there's no paperwork. I says, I gave a report. They said, well, it's missing. So he says, here's what I'm going to do for you. I says, all I want, my warden notified. I want my warden notified about what I did. That's all I want. I want my warden notified. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I stood in the hole. I was treated like the victim. And finally, the federal prison liaison, I forget what his name was, Forsyth. He's Forsyth. He said, okay, listen, we just go back to we're going to ship you to your prison. I'm not going to get involved with this. If you have a lawyer, let him. Anyway, it took me 4 years. 4 years to get the credit. And it made social media. Like the week that it happened, it made social media all around the world. It took me 4 years to get the credit. They will not give me the credit. Finally, again, I have to thank someone, investigative branch of the Bureau of Prisons. You know, I was in federal prison so long that if a guy started at a guard, years went by, they were the warden. I actually grew with them in their careers. And this one, he was an investigative branch, the lieutenant, very good man, very honest man. And he pursued the investigation. He finally said, there it is, you did it. So, again, was I angry? No. Was I upset? Of course. But I didn't let my anger interfere with the 4 years of intelligent going after the document, intelligently going after the document. And that was one of the deciding factors was my release. The Con Air, the heroism on the Con Air hijacking, the graduating of 8,000 students, and I argued a little legality under life no parole. So, and then basically I just, you know, if you stay the course long enough, I think the Los Miserables, the book Los Miserables, the prosecutor relentlessly, what was his name? Renault, the prosecutor Los Miserables, a book written in the 1700s by Deveau, great writer. He wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, Los Miserables, and things like that. And that the prosecutor pursued this man all his life, relentlessly wanted to put him back in prison, The man and his pursuing, he found that this man was a good man, and everywhere he lived, and he did good things. And then it finally got to him so bad that the prosecutor ended his own life by throwing himself into the river. So, I believe that if you stay the course, you look people in the eye, and you say and do good things, it should, with the grace of God, it should come back to assist you.
Well, that's a bunch of great stories, and again, you're just barely touching on it. We're just about out of time, but I got enough time to bring Tom Corby, another hero. And I don't use the word hero lightly, but I use it, I believe, appropriately. I think that anybody who does something exceptional, who's willing to be exceptional, is heroic. Anybody who's willing to go outside of their comfort zone for humanity on any level, doesn't matter what it is. And Tom Corby's a guy who got locked up for pot, just like so many of us. Had a case. They came in, they raided him, they took his life savings, they dug it up out of the ground. They scoured his property out in the middle of the hills, and they found his life savings and they took it from him. And they forced him and his wife to go through a brutal state case over nothing. This was a ridiculous case. And, they ended up settling this deal. They're still finishing it out. But at the end of the day, Tom won. He stood his ground, and they dropped his charges when it was all said and done. And Tom has been there for more people. I've watched Tom go from, as much as I handle the Southern California up into Central and Northern California sometime, Tom takes it from Sacramento all the way to the Oregon border. Just about any case that comes his way, Tom's there. He guides them, he teaches them, he supports them, and he's in there physically in court. Tom, welcome to the show. We got just enough time for your NorCal report. Tom Corby. Tom, can you? There you are.
Oh, and yes, am I on?
You are.
On,
Put the phone up close to your mouth so we can all hear you.
I'm right here.
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
But I see you.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks, Joe. I learned so much from you, and also Becca and Mary and Lisa and the Coffee Party Radio Show to make this happen. How's that sound?
That's great. You picked up what I forgot.
All right. So I'm going to shout out George Martorano, enduring 33 years in Fed prison.
Yeah, we used to write each other, Tom. Thank you.
And we wish him luck on getting his parole terminated. And when we talk about legalization, right? How's it going in Washington? The plant's full. A case coming up, a hearing coming up for him. So we want to get court support there. Now, how about California now, where it's supposed to be legalized? I don't know if you've heard, Joe. I know you know her, Dana Beal. Melissa Balin, this should be the day that he got busted today, and he was in jail, and I guess he got bailed out. That's about all I got so far. So that's up in Trinity County. So we're going to work on getting Dana some court support. I want to say safe travels. Joe and Liz are coming up here to Northern California to Happy Hill. It'd be great if George could come too.
Someday, Tom. I'll be there. Hold on, I'll be up there.
Yeah. And also, friends that want to stop by and hang with Joe, meet Joe, you're welcome to swing by Friday and Saturday. It's tentative that Stacy site for the cannabis will be up here Saturday.
90
So,
seconds.
it'll be the usual potluck, and we'll have meetings, and most of the time we work on Casey. Big John DeBlanc, one of our top members up here in NorCal, sorry he couldn't make it. He's down in Houston. He took a whole stack of your pamphlets, and he's going to go to 4 different events down there and share the Young Solution International.
Yeah, I shipped him some ribbons to his mom's house.
I think Doc Allen's coming up. When you come up, Joe, if you could bring some of your pamphlets on critical pain relief brochures.
I will.
And they're great products, by the way.
We'll talk separately on that, but yes, I will. You're spilling the beans, Tom.
I have Frank Canan here, and he would like to say the words about how he got his case dismissed. So here's Frank Canan.
All right, Frank. How's it going?
How's it going?
Good to hear from you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
10 seconds.
Doing good. I'm just trying to help everybody else out with their cases, just like Tom and Bob Jared and Donna and everybody helped me. You too, Joe.
That's how we do it, brother. That's how we do it. I'm glad to see that starting to be the trend.
My buddy, for like 20 years of mine, he was fishing, and he got encountered by a park ranger. He decided to mess with him, and he's just fishing by himself, not harming his soul, you know. And so he proceeded to mess with him and looked at the water, and that he thought was marijuana. And so they proceeded to arrest him and make him take to his truck, where they wanted to take his truck apart and search it, because he would not concede to a search, to let them search. And he said no, and they proceeded to tell him, well, I'm going to tear your whole truck apart, and piece by piece. And so he finally, under duress, he let them search his truck. And kind of like you, the amount of marijuana they found in the water was only 0.39 grams.
Oh God, that's you can have an ounce without anybody blinking. It's not even a crime to have an ounce. Why would they care about less than a gram? That doesn't make sense. But park rangers are federal agents sometimes.
So they proceeded to go further and tear his truck apart. Went through it 3-4 times before they finally found a pipe.
Oh God! Yeah, because pipes are so dangerous.
And yeah, you know they hurt people all the time. But yeah, he's dealing with a bunch of unjust things there in Kansas, and I've turned him on to Human Solution, and I'm helping him work his case. He didn't even know what discovery was, just like me when I went through my case. So, and that's how he found out that it was only 0.39 of a gram that he's being charged with, and paraphernalia, and I think disturbing the peace or something. I don't know, Adam.
They're reaching at straws.
What about scaring the fish? They charge him for scaring the fish.
Right, exactly. The fish probably have more rights than he does over there. That's crazy.
Well, you know they do.
Well, Frank, here's the plan. I'm coming up tomorrow.
I just want to hear some of this unjust system that we're dealing with.
Well, it's all over the land, and that's why we're here. We're here to support the people that are going through it, and we're here to hopefully inspire and educate them to stand up and break through it. You know, it's only by fighting that you have a chance to win. If you roll over and take what they give you, that's exactly what you're doing. So I appreciate that you're stepping up and helping Tom. Tom has carried the load so almost by himself sometimes. He's got a good team around him, but he definitely needs a couple of good hands. I'm glad you're there helping. I'm planning on coming up tomorrow. I fly in tomorrow around 6, but I'm going to head up and see Mary over there by Tahoe tomorrow night, and then I'm either going to come in late tomorrow night, or I'll stay the night at Mary's and come in the morning. One or the other. I'm not sure which yet.
Oh, that's fine, Joe. Yeah, that's great. Just let us know. We'll be ready.
Sounds great. Well, that means based on that, I'm going to be staying the night at Mary's. And then we'll see you guys in the morning on Friday. All right, you guys. Well, we're running a little overtime. I want to give George the last word here. Anything else you guys want to say to close out?
I love you guys. I love you, Liz, Kathy, everybody down there, and safe travels, and look forward to seeing you.
All right. All right, we'll see you guys in a couple of days. I'm looking forward to it. All right, George, parting shot.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for
All
Joe. Thank you for having me, Joe. I want to leave the audience with this one sentence that I live by, and that is, always remain loyal to your nightmare of choice. Always remain loyal to your nightmare of choice.
Wow, powerful words. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show today. I want to thank Lisa Wildridge, our vice president, who's you see going back and forth behind here. She's been making this video feed possible and sharing it and feeding it. Please participate as you can. I want to thank Mary Donnelly for screening calls and just being amazing. I want to thank George Martorano for everything. And I want to thank the Coffee Party and the Coffee Party Radio Network for giving us a place to be. And we will talk to you all next week.